Hello, everybody who lives on this earth, who might listen to my YouTube video. Yes, it is up to you to let this video go viral. My videos, they don't go viral they don't go viral because it is just not that important. All your nonsense is more important than my video. And that's why only very few people get to hear it, and if you happen to be one of it, you should feel discouraged by me. Yes, I say it. You should feel discouraged by me to have disembodied language. Yes, and I can't help it that I am not in favor of your disembodied language, and you can't help it either. And you can't help it either that you are not even aware that you do not like the way you talk. You do not even realize that there is something about the way in which you have been using your language which is just completely wrong. Good morning. And so unless you are going to acknowledge that, unless you're going to acknowledge that it is wrong to not listen to yourself while you speak, how can that be right? How can it be right to not listen to yourself while you speak? You have to acknowledge that that is wrong. You have to come to this point where you say, Maximus is right. It is a problem that we are not listening to ourselves while we speak. And unless you can say that, you kind of feel hurt, or you feel rejected, you feel upset, you feel judged. Oh yeah, don't judge. Well, you do not listen to yourself, and I do. And so if you don't want to hear that, you are resisting, you are defending, you are in any way trying to make it seem as if it is not true what I'm saying, but what I'm saying is true. Yeah, it is as true as the sky is blue. Yeah, so I am listening to myself, and people, generally speaking, are not listening to themselves. And even if they would be listening to themselves, they wouldn't engage in what I would call embodied language, because the fact that there is a moment in which perhaps, in a blue moon, perhaps occasionally, perhaps accidentally, they kind of hear themselves say something. And we've all heard that saying, like, hey, speaker, it's not what you say, it is how you say it. Well, that kind of characterizes it, how seldom we actually listen to ourselves while we speak. Yeah. So, there is no broad understanding about the fact that the way in which we sound determines whether we listen. And the way you sound determines whether you listen to yourself. Yeah. So you are not listening to yourself because of how you sound. Yeah. And if you would sound differently, you would be listening to yourself. So you have to attune to that. You have to figure that out. You have to sort of just realize, like, oh, I was producing a sound which I didn't even want to hear, and that is why I wasn't listening. Yes, that is the inevitable path that you need to go to come to a moment of where you just really hear yourself and say, like, okay, now I'm hearing myself. And then you can be absolutely sure. You can be absolutely sure that, yes, I am hearing myself. Yeah, I You can say I feel it. No, you know it. Yeah, you know it. You do it. You say it. You hear it. It is evident, and you can record it. You can play it back, and you can still later on say like, yeah, that is when I was listening to myself. And likewise, you can also record, of course, when you're not listening to yourself. And then later on, you can recognize like, yeah, that was when I wasn't listening to myself. And it doesn't change, yeah? So the moments in which you are listening to yourself are always the same as they were before. Yeah, your ability to listen to yourself is determined by the same circumstance. And unless that circumstance is there to make your embodied language possible, you won't be listening to yourself. So unless you produce that sound that you want to hear, you're not listening. Yeah. So I'm just saying, that is just how it is. And so I have discovered this, that embodied language is possible, and everybody engages in disembodied language, and I have nothing to do with it, because disembodied language is an unintelligent way of dealing with language. As I've said, there is of course the aspect of disembodied language that you are not listening to yourself, but there is a consequence of that, a consequence that is irrefutable, an irrefutable, reality, if you will. It's not the reality, but it is your reality. You believe that there is language inside of you, and you continue to believe that because of your inability to hear yourself speak. And so I do not believe in inner language. And so everything that you find objectionable about embodied language is actually having to do with your old belief in inner language. And basically your inner language, your imaginary covert language, is protesting the overt nature of language. That's how it is. In disembodied language, you are constantly entangled in an imaginary conflict between your imaginary, I call that the illusion of inner language, between your illusion of inner language and your overt language, the language that you speak, the language that you have, your disembodied language, because you engage in disembodied language in which you do not listen to yourself. So this conflict that appears to occur is also imaginary. There is no conflict between inner and outer language, because inner language does not exist. Outer language is the only thing that exists. And so you still have to begin to acknowledge that. Okay, I'm gonna walk for a little bit because I like to take it easy here for today. I just need to put on my gloves. It is quite a bit colder all of a sudden. There we go. So it's a beautiful clear day today, but it is pretty cold already. It's suddenly autumn has arrived, and today is the 3rd of October, I believe, and So you're looking at a person who has no inner language. Take a good look. Yeah, this is what it looks like. And this is what it sounds like. This is what a person who listens to himself or herself, yeah, if you were a woman, yeah, this is what you would sound like. And yeah, a person who believes to be a man while she is a woman, or a person who believes to be a woman while he is a man, yeah, that person is, simply stated, also caught in this false belief of inner language. Yeah, I can't help it. That's all it is. And you could begin to capture the enormous implications that the overt nature of language has for how we perceive what we then call mental illness, or mental disorders. There are no such things as mental disorders. There is only our involvement in disembodied language and our lack of knowledge about that. And so, yes, some of us are going to have more problems than others because of our involvement in disembodied language. And those who are presumably having mental health problems, they are, and this is something I just say from my own experience and on my own authority, they are more open to embodied language than the people who are not having these problems. I've worked in psychology, I've worked in mental health, and I've spent many years there teaching also psychology, working in psychiatric hospitals and giving therapy and doing crisis intervention and working in a group home. And I've worked with all kinds of populations. I've worked with criminals, I've worked with elderly people, and I have always noticed, also I've worked with kids with learning disabilities and autism and Asperger, whatever. All these different so-called illnesses that we nowadays have. Yeah, they keep inventing new diagnoses in the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual. And supposedly all these diagnoses are necessary to provide the right kind of treatment. Oh yeah, and the treatment, is it helping? Has anybody ever done the analysis of all the money that is poured into mental health and all the resources that are poured into psychology and the American Psychological Association, all these lofty words, do no harm, all these wonderful, unconditional positive regard, and all these wonderful theories that are there to presumably help people with their problems. And what is it all mounting up to? What does it all do? What's the ultimate outcome of all of that? Well, I can tell you, as a person who's knowledgeable about mainstream psychology as well as behaviorism, because I have studied on my own the Skinnerian behaviorism and behaviorology, and I have come to the understanding that the general knowledge about human behavior is so limited that there is just no progress at all. If anything, the so-called help that is being provided by these so-called mental health professionals, it only makes things worse. And it couldn't be otherwise, because it is the blind who are leading the blind. It is people with disembodied language who are, yeah, you could say, getting other people to adhere to disembodied language. It is not people with embodied language trying to get people to recover from their history of conditioning with disembodied language. No. And I have, of course, myself attempted to preach that gospel, the gospel of recovery from our history of conditioning with disembodied language. But I'm no longer doing that. And on this video, I just want to share with you my joy, my wonderful freedom, and my wonderful experience of just simply being able to be myself, and also of being able to say what I want to say. So a person who is listening to himself is, as I was saying, producing the sound that he, in this case me, wants to listen to. And so while I'm saying this, I am producing that sound. I'm well aware that I can also produce a sound that I don't want to hear, that I don't like. And I can accidentally still make that sound because I'm not, I am just a human being and like everybody else. And whenever I get triggered to, I don't know, to refer to certain topics, I might still produce some disembodied language. Just to let you know that that's what that sounds like. But for me, it only lasts very long, very short, and because I don't care about it, and I get tired of myself really quickly whenever I have disembodied language. And so, but no, I in the past I was of course trying to teach this to others, and there was no success whatsoever, in the sense that it has never really resulted in a broad understanding or a common reference to the fact that there is such a thing as embodied language. So I have basically rejected my own previous approaches and learned from that, and done myself a great favor by not becoming a psychologist. I've done myself a great favor by leaving the whole world of mental health and psychology, as I was a psychology instructor. But I'm glad that I no longer teach, having to deal with all these students and their problems. No, I'm just happy just being by myself. I'm doing a very simple job. And I'm not going to talk about that because I don't want to implicate myself there. Although, if you look for it, you will find out what it is. But I don't care to talk about that. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm here only to talk about what I want to talk about. And so when I of course was trying to reach other people, and that can still occur, when I try to reach other people, I am not listening to myself, and I'm trying to get other people to listen to me. I'm busy with other people, and that's how that goes. So I stopped doing that because I hear that produces a sound which I don't want to have. So I don't want to produce that sound. I want to produce the sound that I like to hear. Now, so that's why I am now talking like this, and it is very simple and very beautiful, because this is how I want to talk, and this is how embodied language is. I've known this all along, even though, of course, I myself have been also distracted from it many, many times, and couldn't help myself, so to speak, because I am the first person, apparently, to figure all of this out. And so I am the expert on this topic. I am the expert on the difference between disembodied language, our usual way of talking in which we do not listen to ourselves while we speak, and embodied language in which I listen to myself while I speak. And that's a huge undertaking for which nobody can really validate that, because it can only be validated by a person who him or herself does what I do. Yeah. So, yesterday I was listening to the laments of a law professor. His name was Alan Dershowitz. Maybe you've heard of this guy. He's this Jewish law professor, very good speaker also, who was talking about the anti-Semitism in the United States, and he was basically explaining how it is very much like how it was in Nazi Germany in the 30s, and how everything is normalized in the left-wing politics, that there is this rampant anti-Semitism here in the United States and abroad. Anti-Israel sentiments where people are basically saying, oh, Israel should just cease to exist. It should, and people are just openly supporting Hamas, supporting the Palestinian state, also in the UN. The United Nations is against Israel, apparently. These are just such... The International Court of Justice is also against Bibi Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel. It's unbelievable how these organizations who have emerged from the Second World War, from the horrors of Adolf Hitler, are now against the Jewish state. And it's just unfreaking believable how people have it morally so incredibly wrong that they are now openly supporting Hamas, and they are openly supporting anti-Israel sentiments, but also anti-American sentiments, of course. Yeah, and it's all tying into also socialism, yeah, where you see people are uniting forces, where anti-Semitism becomes accepted in the left-wing politics, and where where all this hatred and all this divisiveness is normalized, basically, also, right? And sort of like justified, in the sense like they believe to have the moral high ground or something, when in fact they are just totally insane. Yeah, and they want to they basically want to forsake individual freedom on the altar of collectivism. Yeah, I'm totally against that. And so I was listening to this Alan Dershowitz, and it was so interesting because he is also a speaker many times at universities, and he has been cancelled by all these universities. And there's many Jewish people who do not even want to speak with him anymore. Well, Alan Dershowitz, I hope you hear me. I hope you find your way to this video, Alan Dershowitz, because in as much as I agree with your arguments, I hear that you, just like everybody else, engage in disembodied language. And so what that means is that the people who are fighting the good fight, so to speak, and who are in favor of individual freedom, and who are in favor of the American way of life, so to speak, and the freedom of Israel to exist and to not be terrorized, and of the Jews to have their own homeland. All of that it all pertains to disembodied language going against the disembodied language of others. And so once we have that clear, once we recognize that the history of mankind, is a matter of how we have never ever recognized our disembodied language, and how we have always tried to slam down each other's disembodied language with our own disembodied language. And we have never had a clear understanding of what disembodied language is, and we have never stopped it, and therefore we have never been able to have what I have, embodied language. And so I heard Alan Dershowitz, I have had my own drama with academia, and but Alan Dershowitz, he was lamenting the fact that people do not want to talk with him anymore, and he was apparently about to get some honorary degree or something from some university, and didn't get it because people were speaking out against him or something like that. Well, guess what, Alan Dershowitz? Guess what? Anybody who is really about to acknowledge the truth of our language, of how we deal with language, regardless of our culture, regardless of our religion, regardless of our politics. Anyone who comes to hear him or herself, anyone who is able to have a little bit of embodied language will have to acknowledge that nobody has embodied language. And so therefore, just as I said, people cannot validate my embodied language if they do not have embodied language themselves. So Alan Dershowitz doesn't get any kind of recognition for his work or for his stance, because basically what he's trying to communicate is he is trying to address with his disembodied language that there is such a thing as embodied language, but that is not working. That cannot work. It has never worked. And so, of course, there's always been different movements where people have sort of said, like, can't we just all get along and love and peace, and we need to work it out, and we need to address our problems. But what we have done so far has never really worked. We haven't addressed and solved our problems. And to the extent that we have moved forward, because of course we have moved forward to where we are now, it has never resulted in our clear understanding of the difference between disembodied language and embodied language, where embodied language is, of course, the way of talking in which we listen to ourselves, in which we want to hear ourselves, and in which nobody interferes, because we are ourselves making sure that interference doesn't happen. Yeah, do you recognize that? I'm here in this environment. I'm here by myself. I am doing this on my own because I make sure I don't care about your honorary degree. I don't care about your validation anymore. I don't care. There was a time that I cared about it, or that I felt like that was needed, but I don't need it anymore. I don't want it anymore. Those people that I felt rejected by, I have myself rejected now. And I've come full circle. I was trying to teach people, and now I'm discouraging people from having embodied language. Yes, I might say I'm discouraging you from having disembodied language, but actually I'm discouraging you from having embodied language, because if you're going to have embodied language, you'll be alone. You'll be alone, and you will not have your security blanket of the group anymore. You will have to figure it out on your own life. You will have to go your own way. And yes, are you ready for that? No, you're not. You cannot be, because you are conditioned by disembodied language. And so instead of encouraging you to have embodied language, I discourage you from having embodied language, and I encourage you to have disembodied language. So that you can really have your fill of it. So that you can really get a sense like, oh, when I do not listen to myself, I'm always struggling, I'm always troubled, I'm always endlessly drained, feeling negative, feeling upset, feeling stressed, feeling worried, feeling threatened, feeling like I cannot be myself. Yeah, that is your disembodied language. I encourage you to have it. Go ahead and have as much disembodied language as you want, as you like. Scream as loud as you can. Try to dominate other people, fight with them, argue, debate, disagree, and try to convince others, try to dominate them, try to overpower them, and do whatever you can, Give your whole life to it. Don't hold back. Don't be a miser now. Just really put yourself in the fighting position. Because that is what disembodied language is all about. It's one big struggle. You have to win that fight to dominate others so that you can get the attention. You have to win that fight so that you can be on top of it, so that you can be important. Because you don't want to be unimportant, right? No, you want to be important. So go ahead, by all means. You don't want to be realistic. No, you have your own beliefs that you want to pursue, and your belief is the only right belief, and other people, their beliefs are wrong beliefs, because you are special and you are knowledgeable, you are powerful, you are already so accomplished, and no, basically you are really somebody, right? And you don't want to have embodied language, because let's just face it, in embodied language, you're just a nobody. Who wants that, right? That's ridiculous. Why would anybody want that? And I've said before, it's not that I want it. It's because I can have it. So embodied language is not a matter of wanting to have embodied language. It is because you can have it. You can actually acknowledge that there is no inner language. You can acknowledge that you only listen to yourself when you sound the way you want to sound. And so you can acknowledge that. And perhaps you don't even want to acknowledge that, but it is true. It is true. And you will be laughing through your tears. You will be doing yourself a great favor if you were to come out of your misery and acknowledge and accept that, yes, of course, you were struggling with yourself, and that imaginary struggle has always been going on because you never got things right with your language. You have been adhering to an incorrect use of language when it came to who you are, and you were endlessly describing yourself and others in terms of how we are we are, good morning, how we are presumably different from each other or similar to each other, but always in comparison to each other. So you've never had this way of talking that I'm having here. I'm going to walk again. because it is so delightful to be saying this, you know. And now I'm just saying this with so much so much sun on my face, so much energy, so much freedom, that I'm happy to admit that no, I'm not encouraging you to have embodied language. I'm encouraging you to have disembodied language. Go ahead. And of course you don't want to hang in there with me. Of course you don't want to acknowledge what I say, because that is your history of conditioning, which is asserting itself and which you want to hang on to. Yeah, so better hang on to your history. Yeah, do as you're told. And you cannot be yourself. No, you are just another person who is conditioned by circumstances, and yeah, all you know about your life is that you have to behave the way that you have been told. You cannot behave according to your own intelligence. You cannot behave according to what you say to yourself. You cannot be an individual like I am. Yeah. So this last part of this video, I will still continue for a little bit. I want to elaborate on that. Yeah, how wonderful it is to just speak and to be able to say what, again, not what I want to say, but what I can say. It seems such an odd way to refer to it, but it is really true. Like, there are things you can say because you have the words, you have the vocabulary, you have the opportunity, you have the freedom, you have the time, you have the attention, you have the humor also, because it is funny in a sense how we're all troubled and making such a big deal out of this. You to say what you can say, and to stop yourself from trying to say what you cannot say, and what ultimately you also don't want to say. So there is this way of talking, disembodied language, your way of talking, in which you are constantly saying things, or you're trying to say things, but you don't want to say it, and you've never even acknowledged that. And here I am having embodied language, and in embodied language, it is no longer about what I want to say. It is about what I can say. Yeah? And what I will say because I can say it. Yeah? So the opportunity to say it exists, and then you will say it. It comes out by itself. And no, that is not spontaneity, that is not creativity, that is not truth-telling or something, what people then call truth-telling, because truth-telling, oh yeah, he speaks truth to power. That is the same as saying that we have more disembodied language against the disembodied language of others. No, it is not like that. This is my embodied language. And so I say what I can say. And I have stopped myself from trying to say what I or from wanting to say what I actually don't want to say. Because you believe that you want to say that, right? You believe that you have to say that to speak the truth. But you don't want to say that. When you hear your own disembodied language, you hear that you don't want to say it. You don't want to hear it. So, and what you want to say is no more an issue when you have embodied language. Yeah. So now, yeah. And can you just follow me? I mean, just by listening, you know, you're just hearing what I'm saying, and you're sort of trying to. No, you're not trying. You're simply understanding because you're listening. Yeah? The listening itself is the understanding. And also when I say I'm listening to myself, that ability to say what I can say is my understanding. And I can say anything I want to say. But wanting to say is not an issue. Yeah, because I can say it. Yeah. And as always, when you have embodied language, there is this wonderful. Hello. Morning. Hi. There's this wonderful sense of freedom, sense of well-being, and also a sense of gracefulness. Yeah, grace. Gratefulness, but also grace. Yeah, grace meaning like your speech becomes refined. Let me put it this way. It is. I wouldn't call it grace, because grace is again such a spiritual word. Your holy grace. No, we are not talking about that. We're just talking about how you refine your speech in embodied language. It becomes just more and more refined, more and more elaborated, more and more clear. Yeah, and it is already clear, and it can even get more beautiful. It can even get more interesting, and it's all because you can have it, and you can have it in spite of the fact that others don't have it, and you can have it in spite of the fact that you are not busy with others and that you don't care about others. You can have it because you are not comparing yourself with others, and you are able to be the nobody who is having embodied language. Yeah, there's no inner you who has embodied language. So when you have embodied language, yeah, when you have ongoing embodied language, I call that language enlightenment. There is no you inside of you. Yeah. I heard Alan Dershowitz say something really interesting. He was speaking about the self-hating Jews, and so it was interesting that he was speaking about that, because there's many Jews who live in other countries, not in Israel, who are actually against Israel, and who are voting left, and who are apparently in favor of all this anti-Semitic stuff. It's unbelievable. And who want socialism, or who, I don't know. There's many Jews, but he was referring to these Jews who refer to themselves as Jews, who say, as a Jew, I feel this and that way. And he was calling these Jews as you Jews, as you. As you Jews, that's how he called them, as you Jews, as Jew. This is for. Sorry, I make a mistake. As Jews. Yeah, as Jews. That's how he calls them. As a Jew, I find. That Israel should withdraw from Gaza or something like that, you know. Anyways, it's interesting that when Alan Dershowitz says that, it is similar to a person who says, I have an opinion. Yeah, there is a me inside of me who apparently has this opinion, but there is no me inside of me with what I'm saying. There's just only what I'm saying, and there's nothing inside of me. There's no inner language. There's no mind. There's no self. There's only what I can say. Yeah, there's only my behavior. And so there's no me who does my behavior. And this is a conceptualization of who we are as a person. We are just a behavioral repertoire, yeah. And how else would you know me? Yeah, it's by the way I behave, and so it's all observable. It's all objective. It's all external. There's nothing internal, yeah. And the same is true for language. Now, yeah, as a Jew. Yeah, but that sort of captures the essence of how we all, regardless of whether we are a Jew or whether you are Muslim or we all have that sort of reasoning in disembodied language, that there is an inner me who believes what I believe. Well, not when you are talking with yourself. You better not do it, because you might actually get hooked. And you might, I got hooked 45 years ago when I began to speak with myself, and to my own surprise, to my own enormous surprise, because I was just totally taken by, I was so astonished. I started to speak with myself, and I could hear myself for the first time while I was speaking. It was really so peculiar, because I knew instantaneously that I was right. I knew immediately that this is what I had always wanted. And I knew that from that moment on, everything would change. And it did. And yet my whole history, of course, was protesting. That cannot be true. This is too good to be true. This is too simple. This has. You are the only one who's saying this. How can it be true? Nobody wants to hear this, And but I was going to tell everybody about it, and I was going to change the world, and I was going to study psychology, get to the bottom of it, get the scientific evidence for this. Well, the only scientific evidence that I ever got was the one that you get when you are yourself the subject, and when the population that you are researching is you yourself, and you are conducting a scientific experiment on yourself, which is, by the way, the biggest taboo, yeah? Because I was talking about this the other day in one of my writings. When the only innovation that can occur, yeah, of already existing behavior is, of course, the innovation which occurs due to an individual who is not behaving according to, how one supposedly has to conform to the behavior of being part of a group. And so once you stop conforming to what it's like to be part of a group, of course you can go overboard in what we then believe to be individualism, but this going overboard is always a result of our disembodied language. With embodied language, you don't go overboard. With embodied language, you attain your language enlightenment, and that's the ultimate, you could say sanity, the ultimate psychological health, So innovation occurs because of individuals, and new ways of viewing things, new ways of approaching things occur because we are alive, yeah? And if you cannot be an individual, you are not alive. That's just a fact, yeah? You are psychologically, you could say, dead, yeah? But what it means actually is that your language is rigid and you cannot move with your language. Your language doesn't adjust to your life. Your language doesn't adjust to your reality. And so there's this insensitivity of your language in disembodied language, due to which your language never fits with your experience. Well, in embodied language, there's a perfect match. And so, yeah, your language enlightenment signifies the fact that your language, your embodied language, perfectly matches with your individually lived experience. Yeah, I've said it many times, I will say it again, because I just like to say it. And you would like to say it too if you did, but you don't, because your history of conditioning, your disembodied language, is stronger than your ability to say this. Of course, technically speaking, you are able to say what I'm saying, but realistically, you are incapable of saying that because, yeah, you are in the grip of your history of conditioning with your disembodied language, and that's why you, yeah, have to continue with that until you somehow, like I did, because there's no other way. I also went on with my disembodied language. That's why I tried to change the world for so many years. And that's why I studied psychology, and that's why you could say I wasted many years, but I didn't. You know, I got to where I want to be, and I got to, everything has meaning for me. Everything is explainable because I was in the process of discovering all this, putting all this together. But yeah, you can also go on with your disembodied language and recognize, like, yeah, this is not getting me anywhere. Yeah, this is useless. This is frustrating. It is more of the same. Now, okay, when you hear that, when you hear that you say something that you don't want to hear, when you hear that you have a sound which disgusts you, which appalls you, you hear yourself say things and you say, please, I don't want to hear it anymore. I'm tired of it. I feel drained. I cannot go on like this. Well, that's when you stop your disembodied language. When you know, I have written a poem about this. Yeah, a poem which I directed to my wife. I said to her, you know, there was in my relationship in which I, discovered love in my relationship with my wife, my dear Chinese wife, Bonnie. I said to her, it was back in the days, you know, I felt like a total loser. I felt like she was so accomplished and she was so successful. Well, I didn't know where the hell I was going with all of this. And yet I was convinced that this is what I needed to do. And I said to her, or I wrote a poem which sort of captured my you could say my state of mind, but my belief in my state of mind. What is it again? I'm trying to remember what the poem was like. I remember a couple of words, but not the beginning. Just wait a little bit.